Hello everyone. Today I wanted to share some upcoming romance books that I think you need to put on your radar, put on your to buy list, put on your to borrow list from the library. Books that are coming out in the next couple months that I think that you'll really enjoy. So if you don't know, I've been reading a ton in advance. I usually don't read this far in advance because that's just not generally my style. But I'm reading a lot in advance because I've told you repeatedly, you're sick of hearing it, I'm expecting baby number 2 here in a matter of weeks. So I'm trying to read all the fall releases I can. And with that comes some amazing fall release books that I've already read that I want to talk about, that I want to put on your radar. So today I'm talking about like 6 or 7 romance books that are coming out either in September or October that I think that you should look out for. So I'm going to try to do them in chronological order when they're released. I'm going to try my best, but the first one I want to talk about is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, which releases on September 14th. This one follows a grad student named Olive who is studying like at the science college. I don't know. I'm so bad with science. It's ridiculous. But either way, she's a graduate student, so she's already done college. She's like going back as a graduate student, and she's, in the science field. She's like a scientist. She wants to discover things. But basically the whole plot is that Olive's best friend has a crush on her ex-boyfriend. And, that's usually a no-no. You don't date ex-boyfriends, things like that. But Olive really has no feelings towards her ex-boyfriend. She doesn't like hate him. She just like dated him for like a couple of weeks. So she's like, you could date him. It doesn't matter to me in the slightest. But of course her best friend's actually good best friend's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I value our friendship more than this could ever be. So Olive decides to take matters into her own hands, and when her best friend's walking down the hall one day, she just randomly grabs a guy and kisses him to prove to her best friend that, she's over her ex-boyfriend. She's with another guy. It's totally okay to go out with him. And who does she kiss but none other than Professor Adam. And Adam is, he's like a young professor, like kind of like, he's not truly a professor. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like totally okay in that world. But everyone hates him at school. Like if he's on your advisory panel, if he's like, one of your like teachers, like you're screwed. Like he's just horrible. And so Olive's like, oh no, I kissed this guy that everyone hates. And for some reason they have to pretend to fake date in order to help her best friend like officially date her ex-boyfriend. It's a little like over the top, like to do all this for that. But either way, it's a really awesome book. It's got a fake dating trope in it. It's got the hate to love romance, which I just love and adore both those tropes. And it's just a really fun romantic read that I think you should definitely check out. It was very steamy. I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the romance. And I think this will hit book 2 by storm. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this book with good reason because I really enjoyed it. Again, it comes out on September 14th and would highly recommend you checking it out. This one I actually have a copy of. Surprise, surprise. And that is A Lot Like Adios by Alexis Dario. So this one is a second chance romance book that also is released on September 14th. A character named Michelle who lives in New York and she's doing really good. She's like a marketing person. And then she gets an email out of the blue from her like ex-best friend, ex kind of like something more named Gabe. And he lives across the country in California and has his own gym. Things are going good, but they're opening a new gym in New York and they need some like marketing advice. And so he reaches out to her and it's been like 10 to like 14 years since they last talked. And she's like, you know what? I would normally not talk to him at all, but I want to get closure. I want to figure out like, why he just kind of up and left so many years ago without like anything. And so she's like, yeah, I'll do some marketing, but there's some qualms. You got to stay with me. We got to hash this out. And so the whole book is about them rekindling their friendship from so long ago. And of course, romantic feelings get involved. And again, it's steamy. It's a really great second chance romance book that I would highly recommend you read. I really loved her previous book. That's the first book in this series that you don't have to read in order at all. But the first one's called You Had Me at Hola, which I read last year and loved, and this one was equally as great. I would say I maybe like this a little bit more because the romance was already established and I was already rooting for the characters and rooting for the romance. So it was just adorable. Again, like I said, it comes out September 14th and I would recommend checking it out. Next up on September 21st is When Sparks Fly by Helena Hunting. This is a friends to lovers romance that I think is just a really great friends to lovers romance. So in this book we follow Avery and Declan, who have been best friends since I think like college. They've always been very platonic best friends. They have like a whole group of guy friends. Avery's like the one girl in the group, but Avery and Declan live together. They lived together for years and there's never been like any romantic feelings towards them. And then basically one day they're supposed to go on this like road trip to some sort of college thing, and Declan bails on her at the very last minute, so she has to go on this trip alone with her not so reliable car, and she gets into a car accident. She's totally okay, but she has her legs, one of her legs is broken, so she needs a lot of help with getting around the house, things like that. And Declan obviously feels very horrible and very responsible for this because he bailed on her. So he like takes a leave of absence from work to like stay with Avery at home and to help her. And then somehow their platonic friendship relationship turns into something more. I thought it was just a really sweet friends to lovers romance that happened very organically. I feel like the feelings were really there underneath it all. Like I said, they were very platonic, but you can tell there was always kind of that inkling of a feeling. And like I said, it was just a really adorable friends to lovers romance that I really enjoyed. Plus, it's about like two older characters that are established in their life, established in their careers, and they just finally realize the one thing that's missing is love. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is the second Helena Hunting book that I've read that I've really enjoyed. Last year I read Kiss My Cupcake and was equally surprised with how much I loved that one. So I really recommend checking this one out as well. All of these, obviously, the whole video is like romance reads you should check out soon, so I don't know why I keep saying that. One, I went out of order. So September 7th, there's Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore. Please forgive me. This is a historical romance novel, which I don't read much of. The only historical romance books I've read are by Evie Dunmore, and they're part of a series, The League of Extraordinary Women. Basically, they take place in like the late 1800s, and the women's suffrage movement was going on, and we kind of follow different women. This one was about a character named Hattie who is very like upper class in England, and her family is good. She's involved in the women's suffrage, but doesn't truly like understand it. But basically she meets this guy named Lucian, and it's kind of like they're immediately drawn to each other, but they also don't like each other, and somehow they get caught in a compromising position. And back then when that happens, it's like marriage immediately. So Lucian and Hattie get married, much to her dismay, and she like hates him. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast thing. And so of course the book goes on, and she learns more about him, how he's not so hard-edged as he portrays himself, and he's not so cynical and evil, and you can guess where the plot happens and where it goes from there. But I did enjoy it. I do enjoy the series. Will I say it's the best historical romance series I've ever read? I don't know, because I haven't read any more. There's so much more to historical romances than just this one. So please take my word with a grain of salt, because I've read 3 historical romance books. There's so many amazing historical romance YouTubers out there that, you know way more about it. Like there's Beverly Jenkins, there's Tessa Dare, there's just so many. So I need to really read them and get on that. But for this series, I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think this is the last book in this series. I'm not 1000% sure, but I enjoyed them. They were a good time. Which one's my favorite? I don't know. But if you're like me and you're starting off on the historical romance, like you've never read any, I think these are a great place to start. They're easy to get into. The romance and steaminess is there, and not too hard of reads, because I'm not the biggest historical reader, but I still really enjoyed it. On September 28th, I have It Started With a Dog by Julia London. This is I would call it a romance, but also kind of border women's fiction, I guess you could say. This is the sequel to her book that she released last year called You Lucky Dog. If you're a dog lover, you gotta check this series out, because it is full of so many amazing dogs. In this book, we follow 2 characters again named Harper and Jonah, and somehow their phones get like crossed, like they take each other's phones on like this car ride to the airport, and they have to like text each other back and forth like, hey, you have my phone, I have your phone, you know, stuff like that. And so they start to talk, and they get to know more about each other. They finally decide when they get back from being out of town, because they both go to the airport obviously, to exchange their phones back. And of course, you know, a relationship happens. He's got a dog. She's also opening up this like coffee shop, and his family also has a struggling coffee shop. And somehow through all the mix of this is a matter of dogs. Like they have this kind of like an adoption place for dogs, where they do like this big event each year, and so she adopts a dog, things like that. It's just a really adorable romance. Out of all of these I mentioned today, this was the least steamy and like most like kind of, I don't want to say wholesome, but just like, you know, it was very just kind of cutesy romance, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. I love those, but I really like this. Again, I say if you're a big dog fan, this is a great series to read because it'll fill your dog heart up so, so much. It's got so many amazing, adorable dogs. Plus, they talk about adopting dogs, which is always a great thing to do. Every dog I've ever gotten, I've always adopted. But it's just a really cute series that I think nobody ever talks about, but I really enjoyed it. The last book in September that I want to talk about is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. Sorry if you hear some yard work happening. That's what's going to happen now that I film out in a garage, but it is what it is. Either way, this is a great book to read in October. This will fill your kind of hocus pocus, practical magic hearts right on up. So in this book, we follow a character named Vivian, and the beginning of this book, Vivian breaks up with her boyfriend Reese. Like it ended very tumultuously. She was a young college student, and she decides, because she is a witch actually, that she's gonna curse him, you know, but she's drunk. And what do you never mix is vodka and witchcraft, never ever. So she curses him thinking nothing of it. And then the book picks up 9 years later when Reese, who's actually one of the family's like founding members of this town, has to come back near Founder's Day because he has to charge the ley lines. It's like a whole magical type of thing where all the magic runs through. And when he gets to the town, everything bad that could happen to him happens. Like ghosts start popping up. Things just start happening like to random places because yes, this is a magical town, but there's so many non-magical folk that live there. So they're like, oh crap, what do we do? And so Vivian and Reese have to team up together to try to like stop this because it's her fault because she cursed him. And of course, feelings come to light yet again. A second chance romance book that I really liked. It is cheesy. Will I lie to you? Not at all. It's a cheesy book. You kind of have to suspend your disbelief. Like the magic's not really explained that well. The like history of things is not explained that well. But if you just want like a fun, like magical book with romance in it, with witches and stuff, it's a cute one. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had a good time reading it. It really reminded me also of Stars Hollow, you know, the town from Gilmore Girls. It was like this book, it would be like if Stars Hollow had some magical folk up in it, you know what I mean? It was just a small town. They had all these festivals. They had like different booths with like caramel apples, and it was just very kind of close knit. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a magical Stars Hollow. Like I want to go to this place. But again, it was cute. I'd say if you just want to suspend your disbelief for a book, just to have fun with it, magical fun at that, about witches and kind of a curse it's just a fun time, I would recommend checking this out. The reviews are up and down. A lot of people feel the same way as me, that like, you know, it was just cute. Some people are harsher on it, understandably so, but I think if you just want a cute book to read during Halloween with witches and love, I'd check it out, honestly. And the last book I want you to keep your eyes peeled for is Well Matched by Jen DeLuca. This is the last book in her Renaissance series. I don't know what the series is called exactly, but we finally have a book about April. April is the sister of our main character in the very first book, which is right behind me, called Well Met. So this series, I wouldn't say it's like super pertinent to read in order, but I would at least read Well Met before Well Matched. The second book, honestly, I don't like really at all, and not a lot of people do. It wasn't that good, so I would skip that one entirely. That's just me, but I would say just read Well Matched. I would just say read Well Met and then Well Matched, and I think you're good to go. But either way, April is the older sister of our main character in Well Met, Emily. And so April has her time to shine, her own book. She's a single mom, she's 40, and her daughter is finally about to graduate high school, and she can finally move out of this really small town. And so she decides to like kind of, you know, when you're about to sell your house, you have to like paint it and get it ready, get it buyer friendly. So she has to do all of that. And who helps her but her friend Mitch. Mitch has been in all the books before. He's kind of the town's playboy, I guess you could say. He's the school's gym teacher. He's really involved in the Renaissance fair, and he's just, you know, he's a nice guy, but he gets around. And so he decides to help April out to fix her house because he actually needs her help because he is going home for a weekend to his family, and they're always getting on him about not ever settling down. So he's like, you know what, pretend to be my girlfriend for a weekend so I can get my family off my back, and I'll like paint your house and, you know, do your floors. And I'm like, that sounds like a great deal. I would do it. So that's kind of how the tipping point starts in the book. But of course, I always say that, but of course they learn that they have feelings for each other. It's kind of like an age gap romance because he's in his young 30s, she's 40, and she also has a daughter that is graduating high school. So she's like, I don't know if I should feel romantic feelings for you. But I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed seeing April in the spotlight. I enjoyed reading a book about a single mother finding romance because that is amazing. And I was excited to see Mitch, have also his time in the spotlight as well. It's a great series. Again, it's like all about Renaissance fairs. If you love that, I highly recommend you check it out. I read the series not knowing a single thing about Renaissance fairs, but after I read the first book, I was like, I would really like to go to a Renaissance fair, and I still really do, but it was a really good one. I think I still like Well Met just a little bit more because it's got the hate to love trope, but I really enjoyed Well Matched. So there you have it. Those are 7 romance books that are coming out here in the next couple months that I think you should keep your eyes peeled for, that you should definitely check out, either to buy, to get on Kindle, to get from the library. Either way, I hope you check them all out. I would love to know if I persuaded you to check out one, maybe persuaded you not to check out one. Either way, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.